And I'm like, just water. Like, are you kidding me? It's the elixir that your body was made to run on, and you're going to call it just water?
H₂O is what most people think water is, but structured water, easy water, these words we're using, it's H₃O₂, right?
Water, the world's most malleable computer. It's changing all the time. Like the tap, we deliver a man made water that's not very beneficial to biology. When we run it through a waterfall, then we get predominantly H₃O₂. Now we're carrying nature's resonance. Structured water is about harmonizing, it's about nature, it's about causing radiance. All water is living water. 99% of our molecules are water molecules. We're basically moving water sacks.
Then what is happening to the living water inside of our own bodies?
It's a whole different you, Nikki. You're not the same physical being anymore.
But how and through what medium? Maybe it's the water. Water and all living things, water carrying the consciousness of God.
We can live our man made comfort lives, our supported modern life, while bringing nature into it through the Aqua Energizer. Right? We can carry nature's resonance into our modern convenience. It's that simple. Get your body flowing with living water. All right, Nikki. So as we go to get started, I just ask that you take a deep breath with me and that we recognize the inherent connection between ourselves through our hearts and through the water molecule. It is an infinite universe, and we are completely connected, no matter that we're on tropical islands many, many miles away from each other. And I ask that we be guided by water to to speak and reveal what water wants revealed in this time in the evolution of human beings. And that this message reach all the people who it's intended for, and it helps them to understand the true nature of water, and that we do so as connected selves. So thank you for this opportunity.
Beautiful. Welcome, Patter. We're going to get into a lot today about water, so please give us a quick introduction of who you are and why you care about water.
I thought I was a financial advisor, and I thought money is what matters, and I thought I should like go out and like kill and conquer in the world and bring home provisions for my family. And then God showed me that that's not what my life is about. So I had 18 years of that, and I was offered a graceful opportunity to lead that career, which I declined because I was so attached to money. And then I got pulled out through my health. And thankfully, there was nothing really wrong except misalignment. And I had this huge passion for changing the way we distribute water on the planet. I didn't think plastic bottles would be a very good idea. And so this passion that just it just beat in my heart. I just followed it. And it's 15 years later now from when that transition started. And as far as I know, I've sold more structured water devices than anybody on earth and talked to more
Oh,
people about the energy of water. Yeah, it's been a really fun journey. I've always liked talking to people about things, and this is the thing that I got shown I should talk about. So I talk about it all the time and consider myself really lucky to do something so meaningful. So as I get to know who I am for the rest of this life, like the less personal it is, and the more it's about the creator, about water, about the evolution of our species, and life just flows through me, the more aligned I feel and the more miracles show up in my space. So it's a little bit about who I think I am, and we'll find out who I think I am tomorrow too.
I love that so much. And today, I know we wanted to talk specifically a little bit more about the Aqua Energizer that I've been sharing online, and an amazing friend named Key brought it to me while I was in Guatemala, and he said, "Here, use this thing. It's gonna structure your water." And I honestly did not know what that meant at all. But after I drank it, I immediately felt a difference. And I had been feeling so just dehydrated in Guatemala. And while we were living in San Diego, we had been ordering spring water all of the time. And I think I was really going through a heavy difference from that. And little did I know, you can restructure your water into a state just like if it was coming out of a spring or a waterfall, even if it's coming out of plastic, even though that's not ideal, but sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do, or you're filtering it in some other way, you can bring back the energetics. And since then, I felt so energetic. I felt so vital and vibrant and radiant. So I'm wondering what has been the biggest difference in your life since you've drank structured water?
Oh, that's an easy one for me. I mean, first of all, it's changed everything in my life because I'm a CEO of a company that distribute structured water devices. So I talk to people about that all the time. But for my life purpose, like if somebody like reads my hand and does a hand analysis, emotional authenticity is like the absolute key to my life. So
Mm.
I've learned that when I get in ensnarements in life, things get entangled. If I dare to be emotionally authentic, then things open for me. And when I feel hydrated, it's really easy to choose a higher vibration emotion. And so I have a much easier time letting go of anger, resentment, guilt, fear, et cetera. And I have a much easier time aligning with joy and playfulness. And that all happens through the water molecule. And I'm 13 years down the road with this. And every once in a while, probably not so much anymore, but definitely throughout these 13 years, I would start to forget that the like real hydration changes me emotionally. And I might like push the edge of not being hydrated for a couple days, and I'm so miserable when I do that. Like, I'm just awful. I'm really thankful for all the reinforcement. Like, it's taught me, like, boom, like, this makes the difference in your life. It makes sense why creator married me up to have this need for emotional authenticity and then this business that teaches me to feel well emotionally.
Mm. I feel that too, especially with the emotional balancing. I have definitely been way more in my, let's say, feminine energy state, like a lot more going with the flow, intuitive, tapped in, more energetically sensitive, even since drinking the water. And before, I was kind of in that hustle culture girl boss mode and could definitely push the limits on my stress and my nervous system. And I think it's really common. I don't know if you've noticed this, but there's so many times where girls are upset and then their boyfriend is like, "Hey, like, have you drank any water today?" They're like, "Oh, no, I forgot."
For real. I raised 4 kids and, my poor kids, they're like when they were younger, they're like, "Are you ever gonna talk about anything besides water?" And I was like, "No, just get used to it." And so our family was a constant water experiment, and it got to the point where they got this emotional connection with hydration and living water too. And so they would like if one of them started to fall out of the vibe in the family and like be a grouch. And I remember them like hitting each other in the arm and like handing them a water bottle and be like, "Hey, you're being a jerk, drink this." Uh, but there's a much deeper topic that you like started to come around there that I want to go into. I always love to go deep, and I've been going deep with water for 13 years, and it never stops going deeper and deeper. The concept of who women are in today's world and who women have had to become. A lot of women have become that boss girl who has gone and learned how to go out in the world and make things happen. And there's a price to that. And the price is being paid out in both genders, where men have to some degree lost their power and they aren't really men. They're like these domiciled creatures and they've lost their wildness. And women, the depth of the femininity and creativity and intuition. And so when we bring forth living water in a being, when we illuminate your body with what you were designed to run on, so you're not running on artificial energy, you're not chasing caffeine and sugar and different things trying to get energy, but you're actually getting what Nikki was designed to get, what she was born for. That's when we have a chance of you tapping into the depth of who a woman is, who you are. And we need women leaders like you in the future here. Like this present day Earth and this species need women to step into their power. And how are we going to have them step into their power if they're filled with energy that's coming from the wrong source? It's not fully aligned. So I
Mm.
get delighted when I meet somebody like you and you take one sip and you feel this feeling you haven't had before. It's like a level of fulfillment you didn't even know to ask for. And when you get that, you're like, yeah, this is it. This is the energy source I want to run on.
Absolutely. I want to be drinking the water that my ancestors were drinking, where the water was rolling and playing and vortexed and full of vitality. And coming through here, running over quartz crystals and copper, like that is so fun, and even just the idea of that lights me up and feels like remembrance. But before we go too much in the deep end, because I know we could go all the way down, and you can never really, but let's start at the basics just so people are on the same page as us. What is living water? What is structured water?
Okay, so first thing is we gotta paint the landscape for people. All the vocabulary in their head when they show up for this conversation, they haven't heard it before, is all about filtration, chemistry, and removal, right? So all the cultural dialogue is that you should be afraid of something in water and you should take it away. And what we're
Mm.
talking about when we move into this other industries, we're talking about physics, we're talking about quantum principles, and we're talking about the energetics of things. Now, like any industry, this industry tries to position itself, and some people try to say there's structured water and unstructured water. And I don't subscribe to that idea. I would suggest that the true definition is that all water is living water. There's no such thing as not living water. The question is that water on a spectrum up toward harmony, where you're getting the benefits and results and the full body sensory experience you want for it? Or is it down toward chaos, where it is not feeding you? That's really the place to look. And there are a lot of names right now, like hexagonal water, or microclustered water, or structured water, or activated water, living water,
Easy water.
easy water exclusion zone, H₃O₂, like all these things are like trying to put their name on it to make some product look special. And the real hero here and what wants to reveal itself to us is water at this stage in our evolution, is letting us know that the properties are a lot deeper than most people are talking about. And it's that quality of water, that's the one, whichever name we give it. And I think the spectrum to evaluate it on is harmony and chaos.
So if you're looking at water on a molecular level, number one, H2O is a psyop. That is not the only structure of water. And in fact, being taught in school that there's just solid, liquid, and vapor is wrong too, right? Like, what else is there?
Absolutely.
What is structured water?
Well, so just this week, I watched a video with Veda Austin, and she talked about that there are seven dimensions of water. Um, like proven and accepted, like really simple. There's a fourth phase of water that's widely talked about, and that was there's a book published in 2013 by Dr. Gerald Pollack. He's the head of the bioengineering department at the University of Washington, and his book was called The Fourth Phase of Water: Beyond Liquid, Vapor, and Ice. So he took us a dialogue that had been around for 100 years, originating with Victor Schauberger, an Austrian nationalist, and a dialogue that's matured over that 100 years. And he definitively published and is widely recognized as one of the top, if not the top, water scientists in the world. So he helped us all understand from a very scientific university background perspective there is a fourth phase of water. But now there are people even pushing the edges beyond.
That is crazy. I need to look into the other ones. H2O is what most people think water is, but structured water, easy water, these words we're using, it's H3O2, right?
Yes, and, like, bringing it down to a simple formula is such an understatement of what water really is. So, water is a lattice, a crystalline lattice of hydrogen and oxygen that are constantly changing dance partners, like, billions of times a second. Different hydrogen and different oxygen are marrying up with each other. In any given moment, if you go in and you get like man-made water, so out of a tap or out of a bottle, and you measure it, you're predominantly going to see H2O. There's the psyops evidence, right? They have a kernel of truth, right? The
Mhm.
kernel of truth is that they can find H2O, but they don't say that's the predominant state in our water. There's still some H3O2 in that. There's also OH minus and on and on and on, different ways of hydrogen and oxygen bonding. So if we want to try to understand water, we have to understand it. Rustum Roy, the famous material scientist who invented liquid crystal screens for IBM in the
Well,
1970s, he called water a the world's most malleable computer. Right, so it's changing all the time. So if we really want to understand life and understand water, we have to understand it's changing all the time and that it carries whatever resonance it's been most exposed to. The strongest energy wins. And how the strongest energy gets delivered is in the water molecule. So when we run it through long straight pipes, like the tap, we deliver a man made water that's not very beneficial to biology. When we run it through a waterfall, then we get predominantly H3O2. Now we're carrying nature's resonance. So the Aqua Energizer, which you're going to hold up again, you're reaching for it again. I see you, I feel you, right? That is running the water over clear quartz crystals sourced from Brazil. And when it goes through that, it is carrying the resonance of nature again. So the idea here is that we can live our man made comfort lives, our supported modern life, while bringing nature into it through the Aqua Energizer. Right? We can carry nature's resonance into our modern conveniences.
mm. I love the whole point too about bringing it back to the resonance because, like Nikola Tesla said, if you want to unlock the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. So, tell me a little bit about how water is not just this thing for hydration, but it's living and it carries memory and information and communicates. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so there was a New York Times bestselling author, Masaru Emoto, is a Japanese naturopathic doctor, and he figured out that he could flash freeze water and it would reflect back to him the resonance of what he exposed it to. So he would tape love on the outside of a bottle. A lot of people have seen the rice experiments that he did, where he nurtured. He put rice in water in a container like this, and some of it he nurtured with love, and some of it he said "I hate you" to, and some of it he shunned. And it turns out shunning is the worst of the worst, right?
Oh,
And so the rice that was growing in those containers that was nurtured with love, it was bubbling and alive after weeks versus the other was like black and dead. So
mm.
water molecules were shown by Dr. Emoto to carry the resonance of whatever they were most recently exposed to. Now, his work has started a lot of other work, right? He inspired because it was such an amazing thing that he brought to the world. So there are places like the University of Stuttgart and Veda Austin, who is really picked up on his work, and she's an amazing researcher. She takes thousands and thousands of photographs of frozen water, and she's been compiling it for years now, and she is hearing the stories water wants to tell through what she sees in her photographs. It's amazing. If you haven't tapped into her work yet, I highly recommend looking up Veda Austin and learning about it. But there's now a whole global dialogue about water as consciousness, which is, just amazing. And, there's different things that prove the concept. Like, for example, something happens on the sun that is, so far away in time and space, and bacteria reflect the change faster than the information could travel to the Earth. So there's something that goes past time and space. And I would suggest that that's the water molecule. The water molecule is where we access all of the energy of the universe.
I don't know if this is completely accurate, but I've been feeling that water is how we can see things like quantum entanglement play out, like you're saying. If they take even one like duplicate or sister atoms that are rotating the same way and take one hundreds of miles away or far away in space and change the direction, the other one will change again. So things are communicating. Everything is communicating. Everything is passing knowledge, but how and through what medium? Maybe it's the water. Water and all living things, water carrying the consciousness of God.
Yeah, I think so. I've considered what like that I don't really know the difference between where God is, where water is, and it's just they're just really close to each other for me. And one of the places to like start with a just background fact for the topic you just raised is that by volume, when we're born, we're about 95% water, and that
Whoa.
declines over time, right? So touch a baby's skin, right? And you're like, wow, it's like so soft. And then look at our aged and they're clearly dehydrated. And so we move from like 95% water by volume to like 50% if we live to a ripe old prunish age, right? And by count in our bodies, because water molecules are so small, 99% of our molecules are water molecules. So we're basically moving water sacs. And now, if you use that as a background and you watch the conversations that are suppressed and not really allowed to thrive, there used to be a documentary that would show up. It's called Water: The Great Mystery, and I saw it like on one URL, and then it would disappear, and then another, and for like 10 years, it just went on. Like I would never find it where I found it before because it would always get taken down. And they
Wow.
they reported a lot of water experiments, and one of the ones that they did was they would have, people thousands of miles away from one another, and they would expose one of those people to a stimulus, and it would be reflected in the measurements. I forget, I'm not much of a scientist, that's not really my thing, but they would have measurement equipment on the person that was 1,000 miles away, and it would reflect the change. So that that gets referred to sometimes as spooky action at a distance. I think quantum entanglement is another thing that points in that direction too. And basically, I think the thing that we can conclude if we're reasonable is that there are connections between things that are too far away to be explained by our normal versions of time and space. So where is that happening? I am watching the water molecule as it reveals to us more and more of what we're to know in this day and age. And I think as we've opened up the world of quantum, that we will
Hmm.
come to know this even more over time.
Hmm. And beyond just looking at it at a big scale, we're talking over big distances, right? But the microcosm is happening in the macrocosm and vice versa. So inside of our own bodies, I've been looking at how is water reflecting my thoughts and my opinions back to myself? Because water is a mirror. You look in a puddle, you literally see your reflection. And if Dr. Emoto's studies show that speaking to water can turn it chaotic or coherent, if you're saying good things or bad things to it, then what is happening to the living water inside of our own bodies from our thoughts? If we're thinking negatively about ourselves or if we're sending ourselves self love, why does it seem that people who are down on themselves are uglier and people who are full of self love and confidence genuinely show themselves that? How is that actually happening? Because we see it happen all the time. And I think it's from the water carrying those signals.
I think when we look at the properties of water, we start to make sense of this. This is not going to be a conversation that's going to get clinically proven because no corporation can make enough money from it, right? We're going to teach people to actually manage their lives and live in harmony through water molecules. Like nobody's studying that with $1 billion, right? It's all going to be from peer to peer. It's going to be from people like you and me spreading the message to other people, going, "Hey, this is working in my life." And so when I see the the crystallography, the photographs of frozen water and how it carries the resonance, I start to catch myself sometimes when, I see some words start to come out of my mouth and I'm like, "You really want to say that to your water? Like, do you want your water being patterned after that?" And, I think we all have the experience of knowing positive self-talk or negative self-talk and how we feel afterwards. And um, that's consistent with what we're learning about water here, right? It's making sense. It's like, oh, the resonance is changing. It's also extremely forgiving. Like
Hmm.
one of the things I've observed about watching water is like we'll take water and run it through a water treatment plant and we'll fill it with chlorine. And then when we fill it with chlorine, we never show it to air at the treatment plant because that would release the chlorine. So we then pressurize it, put it under a pipe, underground in a pipe, and send it out for distribution. It's still carrying the chlorine. And when water reaches your faucet, you'll notice if you live in a town with a good amount of chlorine, you put your face to it, you smell it, right? And if you take a wide container that's very shallow and you put water in it, you'll immediately notice that the chlorine is lifting up. And the way I interpret that is water saying, "Oh, thank God I got some air. Now I can give you this chlorine back. I didn't want this." And it doesn't resent or harbor grudges or, try to get revenge. It just releases. And it doesn't release partially, it releases fully. And so that's the properties of water. So now if we could take that internal and we can learn how to live life like that. Like, oh, wow, like here comes this circumstance in my life that I didn't want. I need to carry it for the time that I need to carry it. And wow, now look, I can release it. I'm done with this and fully release it. Like get in touch with our emotional body and be capable of releasing it. Let it go. And just be like water. Like water showing us the way.
Be like water.
Yes. Be like water.
Be like water. Water showing us the way. When we look at its properties and start to reflect on ourselves, we can see so many similarities because we are pretty much all water. Okay, I have several ideas. Tell me which way we want to go with this. Talking about how water is a battery. So we are batteries in sunlight. God walking on water or releasing and detoxing.
Yeah, great, great, great idea. So I think we got to get to the battery thing because the consciousness of most people is about water and chemistry. They're all wanting to remove something from water, and they're all wanting like the standard of what makes healthy water in most people's minds equals purity, right? If it's got to taste and smell good, and you have to have confidence, you have to think you're safe, and that's where people are coming at it from. So the biggest service we can be is to teach people, hey, wait a minute, that's all true. There is that, but that's taking water from a purely physical point of view and not understanding any of its quantum properties. You're missing out on the biggest opportunity to connect with the real you in nature. So if we're going to
Hmm.
bring the real you and nature back together, you got to understand that water is a battery. And it's very similar to the resonance concept that we've talked about where water stores energy and water can be chaotic and it can be coherent, it can be harmonic. And so one
And
of the
there's more
things
energy in the coherent state, right? Because it's holding it in a shape,
I think
crystallized.
rather than more, I think a better word would be more like it's organized or coherent. It makes sense. It's spun together well, right?
Hmm.
So every water is constantly picking up information. It never stops picking up information. Even every word you and I choose on this call today puts an energy in.
Hearing it. Right?
It's hearing it, right? And there's a general, like, loving, harmonic, spacious, curious vibe that we have going. And so water supports that. And some people right now in some other part of the world are having a angry discussion. They might be yelling at each other
Or they're drinking liquid death.
or they're yeah, I mean, there's even
We'll
a
have to
beer
talk about that.
called Liquid Death,
That's
right?
what I'm talking about, it makes
There
me
you go.
angry.
I see that, I'm like, "How could people put that symbol even though that's not water, like, that's just, like, a
No, it
version."
is water.
It's a oh, I
No,
thought
it's
Liquid Death was
water.
beer.
It's water that is supposed to be like a non-alcoholic alternative.
I I
It's
can't
water.
I can't believe that that brand exists and that people will give money for it. Like, the things people vote with their dollars are not the things that I vote for.
But I understand because they don't know. So let's go back to talking about these properties that people need to understand so that they can interact with their water and understand how crucial it is. I would say it's the number one health tip
Alright,
besides for like
so
sunshine and
so
food up
here's the
there.
big secret from the guy who sells structured water devices. The best structured water device in the world, just walk outside and be in the sun. Like, just let the sun structure your water, or go in a sauna, or add some sea salt to your water, or squeeze a lemon in your water. All of those are adding energy to the battery that's coherent, that's going to support you to thrive. And our experience at the Wellness Enterprise is that that's all part of the story, and that the biggest part of the story, right there, you always hold it up at the best moments, Nikki. It's the Aqua Energizer, right? We want the influence of crystals and minerals through
And
coffee,
sacred geometry.
of course, sacred geometry, right? When we that logo that's on the Aqua Energizer, we hold it up for a sec? That logo, our designer had it sitting in her job jar for, like, 3 months to create the logo, and she's like, "I'm not ready yet, I'm not ready yet, I'm not ready yet," and then one day, she goes, "Leave me alone," and she comes out with this thing, and we sent it to some of our people who measure subtle energy, and they said, "The logo by itself will structure water without the device." It's like, "Okay, that's the logo that we want," and so all of these different influences add coherence to water, and when you add enough coherence to water, the water gets soft. Another property, like in the Aqua Energizers, it used to be just copper on the outside, and when we put the mineral coating on the outside, the water got sweeter. So we
Hmm.
added enough coherence into the battery to cause the water to be carrying the resonance of sweetness, which is just amazing. We created an Aqua Energizer, and we coated it, and we tested it, and then we sanded it, and then we tested it, and then we coated it again, and we tested it, and it's like it changes the way water tastes. What the real opportunity here is to realize that simultaneously this is sacred and this is simple. So, sacred is that we're coming into alignment with the vortex, with sacred geometry, with minerals, with crystals, and that those are eternal energies. And that's what you want to influence your life with. And then it's simple, like, you just hold up an aqua energizer over a container, you turn on your faucet, you pour your water through it like a funnel. Some people don't know what it looks like to use an aqua energizer. So, you put this on a counter in the bottom of your sink or whatever, you hold this above it, and you turn on the faucet, and the water goes into the beautiful device and passes right through it. Look at how gorgeous that looks. This one's new, it's right out of the box, and
Mm.
it's just amazing. We are, so happy with the way these look these days.
I was gonna say, speaking of the design, you mentioned this being at a midpoint before, and I was reflecting on that, and I was like, "What? The midpoint of what?" And if it's spiraling, that means a spiral is also just like the inside inverse of a toroidal field. Like, is there a toroidal field happening around this, and this is the center where the spiral is? Is that
Oh, that's such
accurate? And then that's at the middle of the tornado-looking
alright.
spiral?
So you've got 2 topics mixed together, I'll help you with both of them. So, first off, I lived a decade inside of that question without knowing I was inside of it. What I mean is that life gave me, in terms of sacred geometry, the vortex. So I got really enamored with the vortex because that's what's created when the water spins down through the device. And what I learned was that mathematicians say that a vortex spins infinitely fast. And I would sit and reflect upon that. I'm like, wait a minute, they can't measure how fast it's looking. Like, it looks to me like the water's just going through a funnel and it's going infinitely fast. And then I thought about other vortexes, like, you ever seen a tornado in nature? I haven't seen them in person, but I've seen them on a screen. And what did, a TV screen? And what do? They touch down to the earth and they pick up matter and they completely restructure that matter, right? So man made it into one thing, and that vortex makes it into something else. And then I
Mm.
would go for walks in the ocean, and I always walk like thigh deep. And I would look, and there were all these vortexes spinning off me, and there are all these vortexes in the waves just naturally. And I realized there were an infinite number of infinitely fast spins, all within like the little range that I could touch. It's like, okay, that's why I feel so good when I walk in the water. So I'm living inside of that vortex for a decade. And then studying sacred geometry, studying subtle energy, raising my vibration, becoming more of a master in that domain. And then life came along and taught me about the torus spin. And when life taught me about the torus spin, that's when I learned the vortex goes up the middle of the torus. So the vortex is inside of the torus. And then, what as it's a different story for a different day, but as the wellness enterprise developed, what happened was we started to have toroidal field generators as our next line of what we talk to the world about. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I get to live for a decade in the vortex. I feel like life is telling me, hey, dude, you did pretty well with this. We're going to give you a more complex shape. So that's the first topic that you asked about, the sacred geometry topic. Now, the second thing is something that might have changed a little bit since we first met you and is a really important topic, which is every aqua energizer is unique. They are alive. No two will ever be the same because the reaction that puts the minerals on the outside is a natural process. It's just like making a baby. And so what we discovered is that each aqua energizer that comes out has its own unique balance point. And so we've put a process into our manufacturing now where we measure specifically where the balance point is for each individual unit that comes off the line. And then we apply the logo in the spot that harmonizes that unit. And we've actually had some where instead of the logo being right in the center, like the one on yours, sometimes they're all the way up at the top of the middle section. And I haven't seen one all the way down at the bottom, but they definitely move around a sizable amount. And so that's one of the things I love best about what the Aqua Energizer has become and what the wellness enterprise is, because I want more nature in my life and I want more nature in my species. Like, I want every human being to be connected to whatever they call their creator, wherever they came from, and what they're here to be. I want them to be that. And so, if we can provide devices that provide living water that bring people back to that, what better service could I perform with my life?
Mm, I love that. So what is happening in the body when I drink this? What is happening to my blood?
Oh, that's a great question. So we recently connected with somebody who does live blood cell analysis. It's often called dark field microscopy. She has looked at people's blood for decades now, and I've actually known her for more than a decade. And she has a nutrition business, and she helps people look at their blood and then change protocols in their life. And so we recently have really solidified and finished the full development of this product. It's been in existence for 5 years now, and we finally moved it from making them by hand one at a time with a solder big flame and a blowtorch and all that to actually making 50 at a time, and we can make as many as we want, like all the time. So we feel really good about the design and that's stable now. We took it to her and we said, "Hey, Jerry, would you please measure this for us?" And she has put a couple people on a protocol where they come in and get their blood measured, and then she sends them home with an aqua energizer, and then they come back 4 or 5 days later. And her words to me, like every time she texts and emails right now, she's like, astounding, amazing device. Like, this is so good. Like, when my clients are getting it from your website, how will it work like this? Like, she just, everything is effusive. And so we're going to be compiling those results. We want to get more people through the process to validate it. We want to make sure that it's solid and replicable. But, it changes the blood immediately and permanent well, not permanently,
From
but
what to what?
the white blood cell analysis shows is, like, it'll show blood cells that are clumped together, and they're not moving, and they lose their definition, and then when the person is, beginning to hydrate and just getting going, the blood starts to move and the cells separate, and they have a lot of movement. And, like I said earlier, I'm not much of a scientist. Like, that's not really my thing, but I love people who are, and I love being around them. And so the most important thing for me is as Jerry interprets these slides and looks at the live blood cell analysis, the words that she uses are effusive. Like she just can't wait to get everybody on this.
Like you said, I know you're not full scientist, but and the blood is such a crucial part of our body and obviously made of a lot of water. Surprise, surprise. What health differences could you predict come from unclumping your blood cells?
If you look at people in this culture, people are just suffering. They're like gooey and stuck and thick, and it's like life is congealed. And I mean, it makes sense. You see the toxic soup people are trying to get through. I literally can't go into a traditional supermarket anymore because I can't see any life force energy in there. Like my vibration has changed. I'm not a match with the supermarket anymore. And so I've had my share of sickness. I had irritable bowel for 8 years. I had Lyme disease.
Oh.
I had a lot of autoimmune issues, and I'm thriving now. Like, I'm, out in the woods foraging coconuts and avocados and mangoes and all this stuff all the time now, and I'm playing pickleball for 3 and 4 hours at a time, and, I'm getting healthier in my 50s instead of, getting worse, and I think that that's just a result of continuing to get unclumped and unstuck. And so when you talk about having blood, like when your blood is really locked up, that's what people call cancer, right? It starts having these different cells in there. And again, I don't give medical advice. I'm not a scientist, but I've seen enough live blood cell analysis to know that when you get your body in flow, it's kind of like when you get your emotions in flow. I can speak about that all day long. Like when you get in flow, when you are like a twig sitting on the top of the river, just going downstream, going for the ride, everything in your life moves. So the
Mm.
blood is reflective of that. Our inner worlds and outer worlds are the same.
So you mentioned people being very stuck, kind of matrixed energy. You walk into a store, people look gray, the food looks gray. Their vitality is lacking, people are coughing, they're sick, their tissues don't look vital. So, what happens when we drink structured water to get us unstuck? How do we detox heavy metals and these environmental pollutants?
Our body has built-in detoxification pathways, and all of life these days is like so defined through capitalism, and it's all about selling this and selling that. When really, if we just go back to what did nature give us, that's where we get everything that we need without all the complications. So our bodies are designed to detoxify. And how do we primarily do that? We go to the bathroom, we urinate, and we sweat. Like it's not a big mystery here. And so why not activate the most important detoxification pathways that our creator gave us, right? Like, let's get cellular detoxification happening. So now,
Mm.
here's what happens somebody goes and they deplete themselves athletically, couple hours running a marathon, doing pickleball, whatever it is that they're doing, and they reach for replenishment and they reach for You know, when I was a little younger, it was all Gatorade, but now there's like these hydration packets. Like, do you think hydration's gonna come in a synthetic dry packet? Is that the biggest joke that corporations have convinced us? If you buy this dry packet, you can get to hydration because I'm
It's
gonna
the
give you
opposite.
the right stuff, like, as though I'm gonna replicate minerals from something I made in my lab that doesn't exist in nature. Like, you gotta be kidding me, right? So when we give people living water and we act like there's such a big change. Maybe you noticed this. I know you've introduced the Aqua Energizer to a lot of people in person and seen them, but people start liking drinking water. And
Mm.
it's so funny because if you go out to a restaurant and you just listen, like at the tables next to you, like, what are they saying over there? And they'll say, "I'll have a vodka martini and I'll have a Coke." And then the person who's getting water goes, "I'll have just water." And I'm like, "Just water? Like, are you kidding me? It's the elixir that your body was made to run on, and you're gonna call it just water? What a joke that is, you know?" Whereas people who are really harmonized and healthy, they're gonna take their Aqua Energizer out, and they're gonna have the pitcher that the waitstaff is bringing over poured through into their glass, and they're gonna drink living water right there. That's how we're made to detox, right? It's that simple. Get your body flowing with living water. And so the water inside our cells and outside our cells is different. There's intracellular hydration and extracellular hydration. And when you drink Gatorade or you drink things that are not designed to go in your cells, your body doesn't pull it in easily through the aquaporin channel. And
Mm.
and so the aquaporin channel is based on charge, and that's what gets water to move from the extracellular to the intracellular. So I know when I used to drink other beverages that I would often, if I drank a lot, I'd get a bloated feeling, and that's
Ooh,
because
yeah.
it's not getting absorbed. If you notice
Mm.
with structured water, as soon as you put it in your mouth, right, your Aqua Energizer water, you feel it in your mouth. It starts to absorb right through the tongue and the cheeks. So one of the ways that I know that I'm really hydrated is my tongue and cheeks feel wet and soft. So
Mm.
this process that starts right there in your mouth, it goes all the way through you. And the structured water is going out through the linings and into the cells in every direction all the time. Like that's how living water works is it immerses the body and it causes that ease of flow. The fact that our body distributes water all the way through all the veins and capillaries that we have is as miraculous as that a tree can take water from, like, ground level and push it up 100 feet in the air. Like, the amount of pressure that's on that tree holding the water down is enormous. And so it's not like sucking through a straw, like, we're gonna bring the water up to the tree. It's a vortex. It spins up there. And so
Mm.
when you put the right water into your cellular matrix and you give your body what it's designed to run on, all that water goes into the cells and gets distributed in your body. It's a whole different you, Nikki. It's a whole different you. You're not the same physical being anymore. You're
And
a
the
body.
water. Sorry,
Yeah,
go ahead.
you're a body run on nature.
Mm. And the body being made of water spiraling, I saw some diagrams recently that showed how the body's actually formed in utero and how the heart is formed and all of the arteries and even how the blood flows through. You're in science class and the only time we've ever seen things move in the bodies in a diagram we've been showed, right? We can't like look at into our own bodies. But they say now, looking at the electromagnetism happening in our bodies, like you said, that's what makes anything move. That's what makes things move in and out of a cell. Looking at the shape of the heart and how it's formed, how our bodies are even formed, they form in spirals. The blood moves in spirals. Your veins aren't a linear pipe, everything is spiraling through you constantly.
I don't know if you've ever bumped into the work of Dr. Thomas Cowan, but he says the heart's not a pump. And just take that in for a second. The heart is not a pump, it's a vortex. It spins water. There's no way the heart could pump water out to the ends of all of our capillaries. It's not big enough. It's not a big enough pump. It's a vortex. Have you ever seen salmon going upstream, like in Alaska?
I
They
want to in person, I've seen a video.
seen a video of it. So they pick their spot. And what they're picking is the vortex. So they shoot upstream in the vortex. They don't go through this like flush of water coming down and they're like, I'm feeling strong today. I'm gonna go up through the water. No, it's a vortex. And so inside the vortex, there are parts of it that are spinning one way and parts that are spinning the other. They get in it and they shoot upstream. Well, it's the same principle that's distributing water in the body or taking water to the top of a tree. Yeah.
I also wanna look at the crystalline structure happening, because so many people don't know our computers and our phones are made of crystals. All the high-tech stuff we have in this world is just mimicking what already exists. Even Wi-Fi and telephones and all that, I think we have skills like telepathy that we don't like to admit we have, and that's also happening through this water and this quantum entanglement. We've all thought of someone and then they call us in that moment. But back to the crystalline structure of how information is shared. Looking at structured water, hexagonal water, it is this crystalline state. And I want to talk about fascia. How does fascia work, and how is that connected with our entire body? How is our fascia and structured water actually making everything in our body happen?
Yeah, well, the first thing to realize there is that there's one sheet of fascia for your whole body. And that's really cool for me personally, because about 4 months ago, I went in to see a massage therapist, and she said, I can release all of the fascia in your body if you give me 11 weeks. And I was like, done. 1:30 on 1:30 on Fridays, I'll see you every week. And I've had a hip what happened was in 2011, I did the insanity workout 23 days in a row, and I so compressed my fascia that my hip has carried that compression for 14 years. And so I have learned so many life lessons from trying to unpack that, and it's just been a struggle in my life. I've been capable, but not fully capable of everything that I wanted to do in life. And so I found this person who was an expert in fascia, and I gotta tell you, those 11 sessions were hell. Like, she really pressed deeply on my body, but what she did was she got all the stuckness that had been clenched down and then held down with the emotions. Like, when she started working on certain parts of the body, I started getting flooded with memories about what was going on when that injury happened.
I have chills.
Right? Absolutely amazing. So, I had to, during the 11 weeks, do a lot of emotional work to process what I couldn't process when the things happened. Life is complicated. There's a lot of layers, and as much as I wanna be a leader for people and I wanna, hold out this healthy, perfect life, the truth is that if you choose a life of emotional authenticity as your path, what you get is emotional challenges, right? Like, that that's how you get good at that, is by learning in emotions, and so the connections between hydration, fascia, and emotions have all been things that I needed to learn, and so it hasn't been easy, but it's been coherent. Like, I could understand what life was teaching me. So I've learned there's this one sheet of fascia, and that the way you distribute water in your body isn't drinking 8 glasses of water a day. It's how you eat, how you drink, and how you move. And so to get the fascia to do its job to drive hydration into those tight spots in our body, you have to move. And so part of the constriction that I had in my hip is that there are places where the hip and the groin and the iliotibial band and the adductors all meet that don't get a lot of blood flow. And so it's
Mm.
really challenging for me to reawaken those parts. But now that I've like softened the fascia up, now it's flowing again. And it's the most remarkable thing to be, 14 years down the road from an injury and be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm recovered. Like I'm moving well again."
I'm having something very similar happen. I'm so happy to hear that, Patter. I've had also an experience with healing my fascia and my hip, although my healer was the opposite. He just met my nervous system with an extremely calm and balanced nervous system. And just with gentle, healing hands, almost no pressure, in fact, just staying there, barely moving, my fascia began to unwind and to feel safe to release and let go. And I've had hip injuries since track. And then I fell in a waterfall in Costa Rica and fell on the other one. And I'm like, nature's trying to balance me out or something." I
Yeah.
don't know what's happening, but once I started trying to release that fascia by getting more life force through my body, doing some qigong, drinking structured water, getting a lot of sunshine, all of a sudden I've become so much more flexible when I've always told myself my entire life I'm not flexible. And it just feels like my body is opening up to its natural state that I've always had limiting beliefs and like mobility problems around. And like you said, just thinking like, oh, I'm not capable to do all the things I wanted to do. But once I just gave my body what it needed, more movement instead of stagnation sitting in my chair, more sunlight instead of artificial light indoors, organic food instead of pesticide filled ones, living water instead of dead or less coherent water. All of a sudden, I feel like a superhuman,
Yeah, well,
and it's a
I think
blessing.
yeah, I think you actually feel like a human's supposed to feel, and this is that concept that we've touched on where God and water meet. And in the place where God and water meet, I think best way to show up is like curious and in awe, and
Mm.
really try to unshackle ourselves of our limitations. For example, you thought you weren't flexible, but that's not actually true. Right? It could be a state of reflection of who and what you've been for a period of time, but we're constantly regenerating ourselves. And God is miraculous and water is miraculous. And so if it is your intention to use your free will as a creator to become something different than you've known yourself as, whatever area of life we're talking about, right? Anything is possible. And and I think that's where we are, is that anything is possible. One of my favorite things about being around the living water industry is a concept I call radiance. And I am encountering radiance more and more in these last couple of years as my network of people who are into wellness is increasing, and I become friends with a lot of my clients. Like we're a really loving company. We just adore people, so we end up becoming friends. And you can see when somebody takes on, they come in with misunderstandings from having been educated in the school system, and they think they are a certain way, and they think certain things are a certain way, nutrients and hydration and all that stuff. And when people turn their life back to nature, when they start to illuminate with living water and nourish with enzymes and all these little trace minerals that we don't even know all the names of, but they start to like have a biodiverse microbiome, there's a radiance that comes on in a person. And radiance happens in their word choices, it happens in their actions, it happens in the grace with which they live. And I have a great example coming to mind. So in the recent fires in LA, there's a neighborhood in Altadena that burned to the ground, except for one house. And that's the home where I've gone and I've lived at that home for weeks at a time, and it's my friend who is a very radiant being, and she has a whole house structured water device on her pipe, and she has sacred geometry tools in her yard, and she has diminished Wi-Fi, like, she's been EMF sensitive, and her family's owned the home for decades, and so they never did all the modern updates, and they always did the things to, like, cause that piece of land to be radiant. And so literally the whole neighborhood burned down. And that one home, the trees are standing, the house is standing. It's like it was just protected. And she told me as she was leaving the home, she said a prayer that the home be protected.
Mm.
And she's so in tuned with that environment. She felt it. She knew she had done all she could and she left. And she has a house to come back to. It's just amazing. So it's not just radiance in the individual person where their skin changes and their words and their actions and all that change, but it's the whole of them expressed in the inner and outer world. That's the radiance that I know is the potential of human beings. And when we recognize that we live in the earth, not on the earth, we are part of it. We are co-creators with it. And when we reclaim our natural selves in communion with nature, I don't know what life is going to look like, but I know the tastes of it that I get are the sweetest things I've ever had, and there's no sugar.
Structured water makes your life better on so many levels inside of you, in your health and your vitality and your energy, and then you start to see it reflect around you as you get closer with nature, return to nature, return to connection with yourself, with others. Water's an infinite teacher. So, Patter, to wrap this up, I want to shoot you some questions that I got on my Instagram story about the Aqua Energizer specifically.
Great, let's go.
See what we got here. We're going to start with the basics. Try to give me answers in 30 to 60 seconds per question.
Got it.
Right. What is that?
That is an Aqua Energizer. It is the world's best structured water device. And I know that because I've tried lots of structured water devices and I kept moving through them until I found the best. And then when I found the best, I evolved it to be even better. It is a representation of nature embodied. It is copper, crystals, and minerals. And it takes ordinary water, water that's H2O, tap water, bottled water, it doesn't matter. You pass it through and it creates the elixir that your body was designed to run on.
Amen. What does it do to the water?
What it does is it carries the resonance of nature through the copper crystals and minerals. It is carrying natural energy. And when the water goes through it, the water says, "Oh, I remember what it feels like to be in a waterfall." And it opens itself up. The vortex spin is infinite. So it opens in this infinite spin. So as soon as we say it's infinite, know that your human mind can't understand it. It's infinite, it's beyond our capacity to understand. It opens water up like that. And when the water opens like that, it starts carrying the resonance of nature to you.
Mm. But how does it work? I need the basics.
So it takes water where hydrogen and oxygen are bonded together, like we think of the Mickey Mouse ears, and there's an angle, and those angles can change. And so when the angle, it's called a hydrogen bond angle. And when the hydrogen bond angle changes from being predominantly, I think the number is 105, it's very close to there, and it goes above that number, then water has different properties. That's the change, is it changes the way hydrogen and oxygen are bonded together.
And then, like you said, it starts to dance in different ways, right? Water's always changing shape and changing form. So when you structure it, it becomes more crystalline with more coherent energy, correct?
It does, it does. It becomes coherent water, and coherent water, like, it's not even a word that most people are familiar with, and when I found the living water industry, when I found structured water, I came to understand, like, this thing coherence, whenever I hear it or feel it, I'm like, "More of that." Like, I feel good around that. And so water can be coherent. When you start understanding the quantum properties of water, you start to realize it can feel different. So a great way we can help people to dive deeper with that is instead of just thinking about their water as taste, like, "How does my water taste?" Think about, "How does my water feel?" And when we start to feel in all of our capacity with all of our senses to feel water, we can start to understand coherence and know it cellularly ourselves inside our own bodies.
Coherence to me too makes me think of how we see beautiful sacred geometry in nature and plants always forming in the same way and patterns forming in the same way. Parts of our bodies and trees and capillaries and how that looks like the roots of trees or streams on earth and how it's these beautiful patterns or you see something that's just chaotic and totally random and we awe and we are inspired by those beautiful things in nature and we can do the same thing to our water by putting it back into this beautiful coherent state like a crystal forming with sacred geometry. So
Yeah,
that's
it's
perfect leading to the next question is that for filtering it or energizing it?
perfect. It's for energizing it, right? So filters are chemistry-based things that remove something from water. Energizing water is changing the hydrogen bond angles. It is changing with quantum principles, with physics, and it's causing water to be alive again. Water that is alive drives toxins to the center of the water molecule and protects you from it. You can see evidence of this by freezing some water. Take some tap water and freeze it and look at your ice cubes, and then take some tap water and put it through the Aqua Energizer and look at your ice cubes, and you'll see it's completely different. You'll see water's ability to drive things to the center versus be spread out in a coherent fashion.
I'm gonna try that. That's beautiful. Also, another experiment I wanna do is where you put a cup of water on top of a piece of art and then do the same thing with a different image and watch how it freezes and see that it does remember what it saw. It has that level of consciousness, and you don't need to go look for science to prove it. You can do it in your own freezer, which is really beautiful.
Well, now you're opening up Veda Austin's work. And that's what she does, right? She freezes water all the time and she's constantly patterning it with different influences. And then she's telling the world the stories of what she sees coming out of her freezer. And it's just amazing. So I'm glad that that inspires you. And I invite you to just go after it and see what kind of results you get.
Mm. So now into these specifics because these are the questions I get the most from my audience, and we love people getting into water. We love the different water companies. We love that water is coming into more conscious awareness of civilization, but we gotta know the specifics. Okay, I keep hearing people throw around the word hydrogen water, and I'm even starting to see these bottles they're like water bottles with some glowing blue light and electricity on the bottom. And people are like, oh, I'm drinking hydrogen water now. What are they getting at there? And how do you feel about that?
I can't really answer without talking for a second about money. So one of the ways my life's been patterned is that God gave me $5 million by the time I was 38 and then took most of it away. And so by virtue of living that experience, I learned that money doesn't make me happy. Like really, like I know it deep inside. So I have different motivations for doing things. And what makes me happy is watching human beings have breakthroughs in their individual lives and watching people come together in coherence and oneness. And so, for whatever reason, when I listen for learning the answers to those questions, the beacon that I'm attuned to is how do we bring humans together in oneness? That's what I'm listening to. In my experience, some of my closest friends who I really admire, who have well developed subtle energy awareness, will get hydrogen water and tell me it is the cat's pajamas. I just need to know all about it and I need to drink it. And I'll go to their homes and I'll drink it and I'll be like, nothing. Like, I don't get any benefit from this. And so underneath deut deuterium depleted water, alkaline water, hydrogen water, like, we can deal with all of them at the same time. They always have a great business model, and they have a way of explaining that you have to have that to be your best self. But what they don't have is nature and love, which is what I'm oriented to. So God bless all of the people who have breakthroughs with all of those waters. Everybody who does something that's beyond the tap and bottled water, kudos to you. Like you're amazing. You're contributing to awareness on this earth and you're going through a necessary step for yourself. I don't need that step. I don't want man-made waters. I don't want out of balance waters. And one of the ways that I know about whether something is really worth talking about or not is if you gave that water back to nature, what would nature do with it? So if you take hydrogen
Mm,
water and make it out of balance using a man-made technology that uses electricity that I don't like, and the person who sold it to you made a profit, and you give it back to nature, nature just takes it and blends it with all the other water and structures it again. So I'll just skip the step in the middle. Those other waters are therapeutic, they're man-made. I want the structured water, the harmonized water that comes from nature. That's what I'm attuned to.
mm. So, specifically, I want to talk about topics that are even more searched up on YouTube than structured water itself, which is interesting, pointing out the marketing and the business side of things. What is the difference between just normal structured water through the Aqua Energizer compared to reverse osmosis?
You couldn't have gone any further apart. So,
Really?
reverse osmosis is the most popular filtration technology. What it does is it forces water through a membrane and creates a yes stream and a no stream. So, if you want to be polarized, then drink water that's got a yes and a no to it, right? It also is a very like forceful energetic process, like you described when we were talking earlier, an experience where somebody working on your fascia just brought a coherent nervous system to your fascia and made you softer. Well, reverse osmosis is like bringing a sledgehammer to your fascia. It's a perfect analogy. So, reverse osmosis, the best way to understand what reverse osmosis is to get some seeds and put them in some dirt and water them with reverse osmosis water, and then get some more seeds and water them with any other kind of water. Maybe microwaved water and RO will have similar type of results. And then the more aligned with nature, the better results I would anticipate you would get. So reverse osmosis is filtration. It's harmful. It's really the only thing in life that I say I'm against. If I could stop a human being from drinking reverse, I used to have two things on that list. My former wife's attorney was the second one, and I had to make peace with her for my own self. So I made peace with her. That leaves RO is the only thing I know that I'm against. It's really not beneficial to biology. It's a powerful filter that creates purity, but not healthy water. And comparing that to structured water, there is no comparison. Structured water is about harmonizing, it's about nature, it's about causing radiance inside of biology. It's completely different orientation. They're as far apart as you could be.
What if someone took RO and then, like, they had RO installed on their house maybe? So taking it from tap to RO, then they take the Aqua Energizer to it. What about that?
So people bring that up all the time because RO is the most owned filtration, and people want me to say yes to that. And what I say is like whatever's right for you is right. If I was going to build an organic homestead, I would not go to the land, strip mine it, and then fill it again with my version of nature. It's not the way I would do it, right? What
How
I
would you
would
do
do,
it?
what
What's
I
your
would
spring water stack?
go to that property and bring in the experts in regenerative agriculture and natural systems and ask them what the cycles are and systems that are working on that land and what nutrients and what biology and what microbiome changes for the land would cause that land to thrive, both in terms of water and maybe additives like compost and different things like that, maybe growing certain plants for certain seasons. And I would let it evolve in nature. So that would be my recipe for it. So when you talk about taking RO water and starting there, you're strip mining your water. You're making it pure. And if that's what you need to do it. But then the next thing to do would be after it comes out of the RO, add some minerals back to it. And don't think if you put a cartridge on that's got calcium and magnesium from a company that's selling it to you to make a profit that you've added minerals back in. All you've done is add like 2 of the 90 minerals you need. You need a wide spectrum of trace minerals. So the best way to get that is a pinch of Himalayan sea salt. That's got a lot of trace minerals in it. So I put the minerals back in the water and then I would put it through the structuring device. And that's the best outcome out of that situation. But better is to get another filter that doesn't have such a harmful energetic process and that still removes things effectively to a standard that works for you. Very rarely is RO actually required, and I think it's a detriment to health. I'm not blaming it for the 8 years that I was sick, but there is a coincidence that I drank RO water for 8 years, both at home and at work while I was sick, and so
Mm,
the way I say that is the consciousness that chose RO was also the consciousness that was sick.
fascinating. We'll also put the link to the filter down below that you use and recommend, although it's not our highest excitement, but just so you guys have an alternative to RO filtration if you don't already have something in your house or want to replace it. Let's talk about another big one that I'm asked about a lot. What is more naturally structured water versus Kangen?
That's a great question. That's a perfect question, especially
Or
given
let me say it this way. This is the exact way someone wrote it. Would you prefer this or Kangen?
great. Well, so the way my journey went was I was drinking the RO water for 8 years. And then my career as a financial advisor ended, and I moved into the water business. And I started with Kangen water, which I drank for 2 years. And it was a really out of balance man made water. So I was super acidic. So I put super alkaline water into my body and I balanced out. And as I balanced out, I got to like the midpoint of a seesaw and I was like, wait a minute, if this brought me to the midpoint of the seesaw, what's it going to do now that I'm not so acidic? I was like, that doesn't look like a long term solution. And that's actually when I met the person who has been doing the live blood cell analysis for us. And she told me a story of her best friend who had just died from alkalosis, which is getting too alkaline from alkaline water. So I don't want to scare people. That's not my vibe. I want to say it this way. Kangen water is a medical grade water. It is an out of balance. If you gave it back to nature, nature immediately blends it in with everything else and gets rid of its properties. It is not a natural water. And so if you feel the need to get a medical grade water, then do that for a period of time, like a short window, but don't think that that's a long-term solution. And I do want to validate that the testimonials that are out there, particularly for Kangen water and the alkaline water industry, I believe they are really authentic. Like I believe human beings were going to die from cancer or something else, and they saved themselves. And so the people are preaching. They are absolutely preaching. But remember, I told you that I'm tuned to a beacon of love and oneness. I expected when I was in the Kangen water business that I would sell 100 Kangen water machines a month because I've always sold a lot of everything. I sold 11 in a year. It's the first time I've ever failed at selling anything in my life. And what life was saying to me was, this is not your path. This is not for you. This is not helping people the way you think it is. So I couldn't get any results from it. So Kangen water is nothing like structured water, and we can provide a link below the video to an ebook that you can share with people that will really take them through that. Structured water, as a comparison, is just completely natural and it's a long-term solution. So even if somebody goes through the step of thinking that alkaline water is right for them, then they can switch when they have the awareness and they can move on to a long-term solution like structured water.
Mm. Could someone also skip that step? Like, I feel like I've also met a lot of people who are gaining an awareness about water because there's so much Kangen marketing, but they haven't bought it yet. Would you say it's good to just maybe skip over that and go straight to the
So
naturally structured water?
here's the thing, you can spend I think it's $5,000 now on a Kangen machine, and then you can find out what I did, which is that when you try to get rid of them when they're used, you can get like 800 bucks or 1,000 bucks for it. So you can have like an 80% loss on your money, Or he could just read my ebook and understand what Kangen water is and what it isn't, and get aligned with nature. The thing about an Aqua Energizer is it's 600 bucks and it lasts forever with no replacement parts and no maintenance. I was fortunate
And it's
enough
portable. I travel with it. I travel full
everywhere.
time and I bring it everywhere. I bring it to the restaurant when I leave my house, bring it to my friends, I bring it to retreats, I bring it to parties. When that happens,
Yeah.
people
I
are drawn to it.
I had the opportunity while I was in that Kangen water phase to meet a guy who services machines for Kangen, and he would take the machines apart and see the electric plates that are used to shock the water. Just think about that for a second. We're taking electricity and shocking the water to make it healthy. It just doesn't make sense. And he said if you had seen those plates, you would never drink another ounce of Kangen water ever in your life. Never. Yeah, they would corrode and the metal would fall apart. And um, it's a natural response to the degree of shocking that's going on inside of those devices.
Right, and like you said, we wanna orient ourselves about being back to nature, back to as God intended. So, also, water used to have way more minerals in it before modern agriculture stripping the topsoil. And now, even our food has less minerals, and so does our water, especially if it's been filtered or heavily filtered. So, nowadays, people know that they need to remineralize their water. Does the Aqua Energizer have any kind of remineralization components?
This is one of those things where we gotta like come to it with a curious mind and be a little bit in awe. So when we put the coating, which has 90 trace minerals in it, onto the outside of the device, that's when we started tasting the sweetness. Nikki is petting her Aqua Energizer. It's a part of the family. It's a beautiful thing. We started realizing that the minerals created a sweetness in the water. So it's a really unusual thing. The water goes inside the copper. It doesn't touch the minerals on the outside. It opens into a vortex. This we know to be true. The vortex is infinite. This we know to be true because mathematicians can't measure how fast it's moving. How does the mineral information get inside the water molecule? I don't know. Like we got to just be in awe of that. But we know it does because we can taste it. And so, having been through the experiences of sanding the outside coating off and putting the coating back on again and doing the taste tests with people, that's how we found out that the minerals change the taste of the water. So, we know that you're getting mineral information from the Aqua Energizer, but physically, you're not getting like you are if you put a pinch of salt in your water.
This is up and coming, though. I've met a girl before who was sharing about wearable nutrition, and it was a necklace that had been quantumly charged with these minerals, and it's in the field. So we're starting to understand and accept these things, and it's real. It
Yeah, thank
just
God
takes
for those.
time for more society to, to
Yeah,
catch up.
oh, thank God for those breatharians who've been out there for decades, just breathing and somehow nourishing themselves, right? Like
Getting a
that's
lot of sunshine, right? And that's something we talked about earlier too with the body is a battery. The water actually creates charge. Easy Water by Gerald Pollack. So also if we can get into the water, put our bare feet on the earth, be grounding, be standing in the sunshine, the water will also structure inside of us. Another natural mineral I've added before. Have you ever tried shilajit?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I like Shilajit. I find it's a pretty good boost. You know,
Yeah.
I just for a long time I was keeping it here on my desk, and I think my little spoon is finally off my desk, like in the last couple of days. But I rotate my minerals. Like we need minerals in so many ways, and this world is so depleted because we haven't been nurturing our soul or our soil, right?
Both.
Right? Yeah. And so if I think about this body suit for a second, and I think about if we turn the electricity off and we just melt down what's here, we get two buckets. We get a bucket of water and a bucket of minerals. That that's what I'm riding around in.
Yeah.
And so if that's what I am, then it's probably a good idea to put both of those things in all the time. Like, just keep loading minerals and water, minerals and water. Like, I'll do an experiment and find out, like, how does the end of my life go if I put a lot of minerals and a lot of hydration in for a long time? We'll find out at the end. I don't know.
Trying to make it to 110 at least.
I hope so. We'll see what happens.
We're gonna do it. So that's why I've always resonated ever since I found it with Shilajit, because like you said, we are sold these hydration packets, and then you look at the ingredients and there are things you don't recognize. There's like stevia and sugar still, even though they're acting like they're not Gatorade and there's some new healthy alternative, they're still lying. But Shilajit is oozed out of the mountains and made from organic plant matter, so I'll link a recommendation down below for you guys too. That's another great one, but you can always put lemon in your water, Celtic. I don't know which sea salt to use. One of the clean sea salts in your water. You can also drink watermelon juice. Fruits naturally structure the water.
Absolutely.
So we got a lot of options here, but the key is nature.
The key is nature. I did a fruit cleanse for a month once, and I wasn't at that point understanding how much structured water is inside a fruit. And what I learned in that month was I drank about half as much structured water as I normally do. And I was like, why am I drinking water? Oh, the light bulb went on. It's in the fruit. So I'm actually getting nourished from the fruit, and so I'm not thirsty. People ask how much should I drink? It's like, well, you should drink till you're satisfied. And so if you're drinking water that's aligned with your being, when you drink it, you become satisfied. Whereas, this recipe of 8 glasses a day, like that's born out of a world where
Yeah.
plastic water bottles are being sold and people are trying to, or corporations are trying to get us to drink that. There's no talk of you being empowered to know what feels good in your body. There's talk of you following a recipe. So you turn it around, you take your power back, and you say, I drink living water, it comes from nature. I am natural. I drink until I'm satisfied. And so you just drink ahead of your thirst. And when you have great water in your home, like hopefully people develop habits like me. So I'll show you one of my little secrets. I always have a water container and I always know where the next one's coming from. Right. So I don't run out, because if I ran out while we were having this conversation, I wouldn't interrupt it to go get more. And so when I leave the house, I usually have like a 32-ounce Yeti bottle filled up. And then if I know I'm going out for a few hours, there it is, right? Now here's where I bet I have a step on you. If I know I'm going a few hours, yes, I take a gallon of water with me that's already been filtered and structured and put into the gallon. And so now I've got my 32 ounces. So like when I go to pickleball on Saturdays, I take the dog's water bowl, my Yeti, and the structured filtered gallon of water. And now there's no running out. And so people now know around me, like if they run out, like go to Patter, he's got extra water, and it's good.
I'm gonna need some footage of this the next time you go and just see you giving it to everyone at pickleball.
You got it. All right. Well, it's Thursday. We'll get it Saturday.
So interesting though, because I feel like people are magnetized to it, whether or not you understand this or you believe it. If the water is around you, or the fact you're watching this video means that the living water inside of you is resonating. I brought this to retreat before and I didn't say, hey everyone, this is this, start using it. I just used it and I would leave it on the central dining table and just watched what would happen. And people used it. They came up and they didn't stop using it. They used it the entire week, and I never said anything unless they asked me questions about it because they were just naturally drawn to it.
So, you speak to my really favorite point about this business. When I was first forming it, I was trying to find, like, where am I being shown to go? And I had this struggle with Kangen water for a while, and then I started offering people structured water. And I went to a workshop for the weekend. There were 11 participants, and the workshop leader was my first structured water customer. And she came out at lunchtime and she put the device out, and people started structuring their water. And 5 of the 11 people that were there purchased devices from me. I wasn't there selling devices, I was there as a participant. And what I learned as those 5 people took the devices into their lives is that they like water now. That was the
Mm.
biggest thing, is they just like it. And you speak of the resonance in their cells. I can tell when somebody calls on the phone, there's a type of person that I can already feel, like, in the first sentence, that they already have the resonance in their cells, and all I have to do on this phone call is watch, and they will ask questions, and then they will answer, and they will ask, and they will answer, and I just go, "Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh," and then at the end, I go, "Okay, would you like me to take your credit card now?" And they go, "Yes, please." And it's like, you just stay out of the way, because all they're doing is relaxing their mind and letting it align with what their cells already know. I love those calls, they're so fun.
Mm. I love that. And my final question for you, because most of us and how I entered my water journey was knowing, okay, I don't want tap, definitely don't want bottled. What's next? Spring water. And obviously, that's great if you can get it, but I know it was really expensive. Comes in glass, which is obviously also heavy to ship. So, what is your stack to essentially remake spring water?
Yeah, so I feel really strongly about this topic because whatever choice we make about our water has a resonance on the planet. And so if what we're teaching the planet is we as a species suck this water up over here in concentrated amounts, don't worry if we create a sinkhole or a depletion in this community or any of that. We're going to take this natural resource and then we're going to spew carbon across the planet and then we're going to have it go over here. And these people who have more money are going to get to drink it. It carries the vibration of all of that. It carries the resonance of it. So I think we have to be careful of spring water. And what we have to do is we have to realize we've invested intensely in this infrastructure that lets us turn a faucet, and pretty much for all of us in this whole country, clean water comes out of a faucet. Now, the degree of safety and health characteristics about that water, that's the question. So, what I suggest is stacking slowly, because you don't need to race out and buy the whole stack at once. First step, you have to take care of the energetics of your water. So get your Aqua Energizer and take your tap water and pour it through and see if you're satisfied. Because if the feedback from your cells is I poured my water from my tap through my Aqua Energizer and I'm satisfied, you're done. No replacement parts, no maintenance, one-time purchase for life. That's the most amazing outcome that we could have. Now, the next step is the person says, okay, I'm satisfied, but my mind has been educated and my mind fears toxins. Even though I'm satisfied, I still need something to protect myself. So now the next thing would be to get one of the Alexa Pure filters that we have available on the Wellness Enterprise or the best water pitcher ever. And the differences between them is they're both very laboratory tested and validated to remove the toxins that are important to us, like fluoride and all of the others. If you get rid of fluoride, it means you get rid of all the others too. Like that's the harder one to get. So that's all documented on the website. The distinctions between the two is the Alexa Pure removes biological contamination too. So if you have to drink out of a river, you would use the Alexa Pure, and the best water pitcher ever removes radiation from water. So if you have fear or concern about Fukushima and you live in a place where there's radiation, you want to have the pitcher. But both are great solutions. Now that's step two. And if you're satisfied after step two, you're done, right? And your water should smell good, it should taste good, and you should be confident and feel really great about it. If you're not there after step two, you add step three. And step three is a distiller. And what the distiller does is through steam, it takes the water from one container and moves it into another, leaving everything behind. Like the water doesn't go through a membrane, it's the water goes into steam and then it drops back down. And if you take water and you filter it through an Alexa Pure and then you distill it and then you put it through your Aqua Energizer, I feel really confident that that is better than spring water because you don't carry that vibration I talked about at the beginning. You carry honor. You carry, I love my water, so I put it through a three-step process. And honestly, that's what I do myself. I go through both of those steps and then I pour through the Aqua Energizer. And it's more energy than I've ever put into making water for myself, but it's as good or better than spring water. And I just feel phenomenal about it. And that's why I'm doing it.
Well, thank you so much for sharing, Patter. Let me see if I have anything else. We'll wrap it up with what is one thing that you wish everyone knew about water?
That your DNA is surrounded in it and that the limitations that you think you know for your life aren't actually true. And that when you there was an experiment done where they put electromagnetic radiation to a beaker with a species of fish, and then they had a hatch in the second container, so there was no overlap between the two containers. There was just the information, and the next generation of the fish came out looking completely different than the ones before. So we can literally change everything in our worlds, and the most powerful way to change your DNA is by realigning you with nature in infinite possibilities, awe, curiosity, and love. You bring all that together and you can create the most unbelievable life for yourself, something more than you ever could have imagined.
Well, thank you, Patter from the Wellness Enterprise. I'm Nikki Neisler. This was the talk about water, the truth they don't tell you. Have a
Thanks,
great
Nikki.
day, Patrick.
Thank you so much.